All right, here we go. The new Premier League season is right around the corner. Sort of. Who am I lying to? It's way too early to make these predictions, and they could age terribly, but that's why you're all here, I guess. Regardless, I have put together my early Premier League predictions, the full table from top to bottom. Who's winning it all? Who's sneaking into Europe? And even more unpredictably, who's going down? Some of these might surprise you. So sit back and get ready to agree, argue, or I guess save it until the end of the season when I'm inevitably wrong and you can come back and laugh at my picks. Let's jump in. Starting with the relegation zone, I think that unsurprisingly it will be the three promoted teams: Leeds, Sunderland, and Burnley. As much as I would hate for this to be the case again, I think it's just the safest bet and a bit of a cop out answer. But I really hope I'm wrong. With that, I have Burnley in 20th. And I think the other two do have somewhat of a chance of survival. I mean, I've been a bit of a fan of some of the bits of business that Sunderland have done. I mean, taking a dinger off of Brighton's hands. Don't know if that's that good business, but still. And meanwhile, Leeds will hope to have a similar return to the Prem as they did last time out. I think these two could be pretty interchangeable, and I hope to see them further up the order come the end of the season. However, I just don't see it. And in this case, I'll be putting Leeds 19th and Sunderland 18th. 17th place, Wolves. Unfortunately, I think Wolves losing Cunha and Eight Nori could lead to problems, and they struggle again. However, the gap in class may just be too much again between them and the newly promoted sides. And I just don't see any of those three teams having enough ability to stage a fight to survive. However, I do think this could potentially be one of the more competitive scraps that we've had over the years, but I'm not too hopeful. And that being said, it's not even hard considering what we had last season. 16th, Palace. Crystal Palace. Rivalry and agendas aside, I simply don't think they'll be able to cope with the pressures of European football as well as having a serious attempt at the league. That being said, a serious attempt at the league for Palace is finishing between 11th and 14th and being painfully boring all season as they don't compete for Europe and they don't threaten relegation. However, potential exits for Guay and Eze alongside whatever European competition it is that they actually end up playing, depending on UEFA's ruling, Palace could struggle. And unfortunately, I just don't think they'll struggle enough to get relegated. 15th, West Ham. I don't have many words for West Ham. I actually really quite like the club, but I feel like Potter just isn't going to propel them high enough up the table as they may hope for. And as I think that they've actually began to belong. But selling Kudus, it could be some great business if reinvested properly. And I think they have a strong enough side to not get roped into any danger, but I also don't have much hope of seeing them challenge for that much this season. 14th, Brentford. Potentially a shock to some people on this list, but with Flecken, Norgard gone alongside Thomas Frank and potentially also Embuemo, it could actually get tough for Brentford. And as a Brighton fan, I've always looked at those people that make the predictions when we've lost a couple big names and think that what they're just getting it wrong, underestimating us. And Brentford are pretty similar to Brighton in just the kind of stance of how people view them doing business. But potentially I'm doing the same here, but I'm just not a fan at all of the managerial replacement in Keith Andrews. But it would also be very Brentford for this to pay off. Also, Brentford fans, if you think my placement is harsh, bad news for what the AI thinks about it in my next video. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that, or maybe you actually do want to miss out on that one. I'm not sure. Regardless, please subscribe. It helps a lot. 13th, Fulham. Slowly becoming a mid-table staple after some years of bouncing in between the Prem and the Championship, but I think Marco Silva's done a great job and they have more than enough to stay in the mid-pack. Anyone that knows me knows I'm a big Anthony Robinson enjoyer, and I think he'll be on for another season. Fulham just also seem to batter us, so I can't say I'd be too upset if they shockingly got relegated. Sorry, Fulham fans. 12th, Nottingham Forest. Forest is a tough one. Obviously, the main surprise package of last year, but can Chris Wood maintain his form? And with Alanga and Gibbs White potentially out the door, alongside European congestion, whether that is from the Europa Conference League or potentially the Europa League, depending on what happens with Crystal Palace, of which I'm in a very grey area because I'd love for Palace to get kicked out, but I also don't have the ability to watch them go far in a European competition, of which they could in the Conference League. But anyway, back to Forest. I unfortunately don't have them pegged for the same sort of domestic success as they had last year this season. 11th, Everton. David Moyes is at the wheel, and with the new stadium, I think they are more than set to start pushing back up the table, also where they belong. However, I have them in 12th, due to some of the firepower of the league potentially being too strong above them. And despite this, I would not be surprised at all for these to be the shock of the season, like in Nottingham Forest's were last year. Also, Tieno Barry is an interesting move that I'm a big supporter of. 10th, Bournemouth. They've lost some key assets in Hoyson and Kirkes, with it potentially not being over as Sabani is also rumoured to be out the door. However, I just trust in their ability to survive and rebuild, and I think they've become a dark horse and have actually started pretty regularly recruiting smartly. This could go badly wrong, but I back them to hang on and continue their upwards trajectory. Ninth place, Spurs. Spurs may be a shock to see this far up the table after they rotted last year, with some rumoured investment in midfield with the potential captures of Gibbs White plus Kudus being announced literally like as I recorded this video. Thomas Frank's first full season could be volatile, although I back him to do well. Whether that includes more trophies, I'm not so sure. But regardless, surely they can't stink as much as last season, right? Even with European football again. Speaking of stinking, 8th, Man United. Here we go. The other ugly half of 2024-2025's failures. And I mean, this could easily be wrong if they're anything like last year, but genuinely, on paper, this squad is just too talented with a manager too good to be performing as awfully shit as they did last year. Cunha is a decent signing, and if they do get Mbuemo over the line, that could also be very important. With Bruno allegedly staying and Mainu back from injury, surely Amarim's system begins to click, right? 7th, Aston Villa. Okay, now, as an early prediction, this could be a little bit off, but it's also only one below where they finished last year, so it isn't actually that disrespectful. And I think Emery is class, and with players like Onana and Rogers, they're bound to do all right. Also, I may just be living under a rock, but I've literally seen no rumours at all regarding incomings, and someone had to be the sacrifice for my delusion, of which comes next. 6th place, Brighton. 6th place, Brighton and Hove Albion. What can I say? It may just be ultimate bias, but I'm standing on it. João Pedro out the door for big money. Herschel have been able to build for what seems to be his preferred back 3/5. Signings to reinforce the backlines such as De Kuiper, Boscagli and Coppola, as well as firepower up front in Costulas, as well as it looks as though Matoma could be signing a new contract and Baleba may be staying. With the rest of our surrounding competition also qualifying for Europe last season, I think we have a major shot at performing this year. And at least I really hope so. I have faith and confidence, but come to think of it, I may be mistaking that for delusion, but I'm saying it anyway. Brighton in 6th, again. 5th, Chelsea. Maresca's side have signed Delap, João Pedro, Esteval, and about 500 other people that would make the video go on for hours if I even bothered to begin to name them all. They are just a strong side with the depth to compete on all fronts pretty dangerously. Not much else I can really add to it. Chelsea in 5th. 4th, Newcastle. 4th place, I have Newcastle again, becoming a staple of the top end of the table, and Isak is just magical. Alanga could be a great signing and forming a pretty deadly front three, and rumours of Scalvani could be a rock solid defence. I think this is just an all round quality footballing side with the ability to pressure the big three. 3rd, Arsenal. Shockingly, have left 2nd place in my predictions. I just don't really rate the business that they have done so far. Zubimendi could be great, but rumours of Madueke really put me off, and I still think Arsenal lack that necessary firepower to be able to take their first title in the Arteta era, especially when you put them up against the likes of Man City and Liverpool, who are, for me, just way, way stronger sides who have that killer mentality when it comes to getting over the line, of which Arsenal really do lack. Which leads me to the final two. In 2nd, Manchester City. 2nd, I have Manchester City, and honestly, This was a flip of a coin for me. I feel like City have really started this window off brilliantly with the likes of Reinders, Cherky, Aitnori. They began to pick it up again after their hiatus around the midpoint of last season, and I think they're back to looking dangerous. And I probably would have had them first if it wasn't for Liverpool's early business, which leads me very nicely on to my first place team and the 2025-2026 early predictions champions, Liverpool. They're the reigning champions and they've been active in the market. Big money moves for Florian Wirtz, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, plus goalkeeping reinforcement signal intent to tighten their grip. And honestly, I think this business has been brilliant. And obviously, it is too early to say that as we haven't actually seen any of them kick a ball in a Liverpool shirt. But everywhere I'd have said that they would need to improve and they looked relatively weak as you can look when you've just won a Premier League without really ever looking like you were going to lose it. They've improved, except from at striker, but it does look like they intend on rectifying that before the window closes. And when you've got footballing greats such as Alexis McAllister, please, please come home, my sweet prince. I think Liverpool just have what it takes to retain the title. That wraps it up for my early Premier League predictions. But if you would like to know what AI thinks the table will look like, subscribe so you don't miss out on that video coming soon. With that said, fade to black.